Dean Martin was known as the King of Cool, but when the lights dimmed and the martinis flowed deep into the Vegas night, he started telling the real stories. He saw Hollywood for what it was, a slick hustle where charm was currency and beauty was a ticket with an expiration date. There was the bombshell passed around like tableware, the genius forced to play baneless, and the queen who once sold herself for film reels she'd later spend millions to erase. So forget the romantic tales, because today we're revealing 5 Golden Age actresses who once sold behind doors. Chapter 5. Joan Crawford. For Dean Martin, Joan was never just a star. She was living evidence that Hollywood didn't just discover queens, it manufactured them, often from places so dark they were never meant to be spoken about again. He would take a slow drag from his cigarette, let the smoke drift, and wear that familiar half-smile of someone who had lived too close to the truth. If the next actress on our list had been a lamb torn apart by wolves, Joan was something else entirely. She walked into the den on her own. She didn't wander in blindly. She understood the bargain, and she accepted it. To the public, Joan Crawford was elegance carved in light, satin gowns, perfect posture, a woman who carried herself like royalty. Dean knew another woman. He knew the one before the name, before the contracts, before the illusion hardened, back when there was only hunger and survival instinct. Before Joan Crawford burned on marquees, she was Lucille Le Sueur. And Lucille was not born into glamour. She danced in nightclubs in Chicago and Detroit, the kinds of places Dean knew well. Those clubs were never about music. They were dressed-up markets. Young women were called taxi dancers. Men bought tickets for dances. Everyone knew what the tickets really meant. If a customer paid enough, the night did not end on the floor. The line between dancer and prostitute in those rooms was thin as smoke. But Joan's darkest chapter, Dean said, didn't stop there. When he spoke of it, his voice lowered, not for drama, but from habit. In Hollywood's upper circles, there had always been whispers of a real MGM spent a fortune trying to erase. A black reel. In her most desperate years, before Lucille Le Sueur became Joan Crawford, she reportedly appeared in a pornographic stag film called Velvet, not for ambition or curiosity, for money to eat, to survive. The kind of decision that follows a person long after the moment passes. When Joan's career took off, and she became one of Louis B. Mayer's most profitable stars, that forgotten reel resurfaced. Someone threatened to release it. In the 1930s, that kind of exposure meant extinction, not a scandal, erasure. The image MGM had built would collapse overnight. Dean said the studio's cleanup machine went to work. Eddie Mannix, the fixer who handled problems with cash, fear, and silence, was sent in. The price to recover the negative and bury every trace was rumored to climb as high as $100,000, an enormous sum. The deal happened quietly. The film disappeared. Joan's past was burned out of the record. From that moment on, Lucille was gone. Joan remained. She reshaped herself into discipline, control, and ice. She became severe, exact, obsessively clean. People later mocked it. Dean didn't. He believed that the past carved her future. He once said she wasn't scrubbing floors. She was scrubbing memory, trying to erase the feel of hands, the smell of those rooms, the person she had once been. She wrapped everything in plastic because she feared contamination from the world and from herself. In Dean Martin's eyes, Joan Crawford was not immoral. She was a warrior. She sold her body in darkness to buy herself a place in the light. She mastered the rules because she had survived their ugliest version. When he watched her stride across Oscar carpets, he didn't see glamour. He saw the cost paid before anyone was watching. She traded with the devil and won, but the victory left scars that never faded. That is why Joan Crawford stands on this list. Not because she was promiscuous, but because she remains the clearest proof that Hollywood can turn a working girl into a queen, as long as she brings enough profit to the throne and pockets. Chapter 4. Marilyn Monroe. Well, Hollywood is a dark and polished machine, and few men ever saw its inner workings as clearly as Dean. He wasn't just famous. He was seated at the center of it all. Vegas royalty, Rat Pack core, a man welcomed into rooms most never knew existed. When the lights dimmed and the laughter thinned, that was when Dean spoke differently. And when Marilyn Monroe's name came up, his voice never carried nostalgia. It simply carried regret. He once called her the most expensive item ever placed on the Wolves' banquet table. We mean, not as an insult, but as an observation. Dean had lived too close to the machinery to romanticize it. By the end of his life, when the applause had quieted and the stage no longer needed him, he finally said what had followed him for decades. Marilyn had been bought long before she was adored. To understand what he meant, the famous image has to disappear. Well, forget the subway grate. Forget the breathless smile and white dress. Go back to the late 1940s when she was still Norma Jean, unknown, underfed, and drifting from one fragile opportunity to the next. Hollywood in those years was not a land of discovery. It was a kingdom. Studio moguls ruled like monarchs, and young women without money or protection were expected to offer the only thing they had. Dean knew those rules intimately. He heard the stories from people who had been there, from men like Sinatra, from powerful figures who hosted the kinds of private gatherings the public never saw. Marilyn, in those rooms, was not the star. She was the attraction after the attraction. Something passed, not praised. Dean never softened the details. He spoke of 1949, when she posed for the nude red velvet photographs, just for $50. Not for beauty, not for ambition, because she needed rent, because hunger makes decisions before dignity ever gets a vote. People remember the image. Dean remembered the reason. At those mansion parties, Marilyn rarely arrived as a guest. She came with awareness. Dean recalled her smile because everyone did. But what stayed with him were her eyes. They didn't match. They carried tension. They watched the room. They measured consequences. She understood what those nights were for. If she wanted a role, a screen test, or even the courtesy of being remembered, she had to deliver what was expected. The casting couch was never symbolic for her. It was operational. It meant late phone calls, private hotel meetings disguised as auditions, and rooms where no scripts were ever opened. Only doors were. Only drinks were poured. Only power spoke. Dean once admitted bitterly that Marilyn's greatest performance was innocence. On screen, she seemed untouched. In life, she had been forced into awareness far too early. That awareness changed her. It hardened her. It taught her that beauty was not decoration in Hollywood. It was currency. There were whispers in Vegas that she had attended gatherings hosted by underworld associates of the Rat Pack. At those events, she wasn't introduced as an actress. She was presented, and she never resisted. Dean said it wasn't because she didn't feel it. It was because resistance meant disappearance. It meant returning to factory floors, empty apartments, and the kind of hunger fame had finally silenced. What haunted Dean most wasn't what Marilyn did. It was what was done with her. Hollywood sold her to the world as a fantasy while quietly teaching her to sell herself to survive. They built her image and broke her boundaries at the same time. When Dean raised a glass to her, he didn't picture magazine covers. He pictured Norma Jean stepping out of a powerful man's bedroom at sunrise, smoothing her hair, touching up lipstick, clutching a promise instead of a guarantee, and preparing to walk back into a system that never intended to protect her. Marilyn Monroe stands at the top of this list not for scandal, but because she remains the clearest proof of Dean's quiet conclusion about Hollywood. Everything carries a cost. And sometimes the cost is not money, reputation, or time. Sometimes the cost is the part of you that never truly comes back. Chapter 3. Barbara Stanwick. Late in a LA night, Dean Martin poured his last glass of wine and fell quiet. His thoughts drifted to the final woman in his unspoken list, Barbara Stanwick. But she wasn't like the others. She didn't enter Hollywood wearing a mask. She forged hers in fire. Before she was Barbara Stanwick, she was Ruby Stevens. Orphaned at 4, raised in Brooklyn alleyways. No family, no fortune, just sharp instincts and a will that wouldn't bend. She didn't find fame. She fought for it. And long before the silver screen knew her name, Ruby danced in speakeasies during the Prohibition years, places where men held power, cash, and no mercy. Dean knew those clubs. They weren't entertainment spots. They were markets. Girls weren't just dancers. They were rewards. After their sets, they belonged to whoever had the pull. Ruby wasn't naive. She didn't pretend it was glamour. She knew exactly what it was, and she endured it, not for fun or validation, but because it was her only way out. Dean had heard stories passed down quietly. Ruby did what she had to do in the shadows, serving moguls and mobsters, playing the part expected of her. And when she got her shot in Hollywood, she didn't waste it. She brought that pain, that silence into her roles. Watching her in Double Indemnity, Dean didn't see acting. He saw memory. That cold look, calculating, detached, wasn't written into the script. It had been forged years earlier in rooms where she had to bite down and survive. What separated Barbara from the rest wasn't just talent. It was control. She didn't let her past define her. She used it, turned it into armor. Her marriages, her roles, her moves in Hollywood, they were chosen with surgical precision. Dean admired her not because she played the game well, but because she played it on her own terms. But even then, at parties where the drinks flowed and the lights softened, Dean sometimes caught that flicker in her eyes, a loneliness that hadn't left her. She had conquered Hollywood, but somewhere inside, Ruby still remembered what she had to sell to get there. Chapter 2. Lana Turner. Well, if Marilyn Monroe was a lamb who wandered into a den of wolves, Lana Turner was something very different. She didn't wander. She walked in with her eyes open. Dean Martin used to tap his fingers lightly on the table when her name came up, staring past the room toward the neon breathing outside the Vegas windows. If there was one world he understood better than scripts or songs, it was the underworld. As a core member of the Rat Pack, he and Sinatra had eaten, drunk, and negotiated in rooms where America's most dangerous men made decisions. Dean knew their codes: ruthless, transactional. Women are treated like jewelry, and in his eyes, no Hollywood star entered that world as deeply or as willingly as Lana Turner. Audiences adored her as the innocent sweater girl, the soft smile wrapped in warmth and approachability. Dean always found that image bitterly funny. He knew the woman behind it. Lana was never fragile. She was restless, drawn to risk, seduced by proximity to power. She wasn't selling herself for rent or groceries. She was selling access. She let dangerous men orbit her because danger made her feel protected. Because proximity to violence felt like control. Dean never placed her on this list because she took money like a nameless starlet. Lana sold something far more valuable. She sold her fame. She let criminals wear her reputation like a tailored suit. The clearest example was Johnny Stompanato. He wasn't an actor. He wasn't a producer. He was muscle, a gangster, bodyguard, and enforcer tied to Mickey Cohen. The kind of man Dean often saw standing in casino shadows, one hand resting near the inside of a jacket. When people asked why a lady like Lana Turner would choose someone like that, Dean never hesitated. He called it a contract. Johnny needed Lana, Possessing the most desired woman in America was a trophy. He paraded her through nightclubs. She draped herself in jewelry bought with dirty money, displayed her to his circle like proof of status. And Lana? She got submission wrapped as protection. She liked how he frightened people. She liked the way rooms shifted when he entered. She liked walking beside something everyone else feared. What she paid with was her body, her autonomy, and eventually her safety. Dean had seen the aftermath up close. Backstage whispers, visible bruises. Johnny didn't treat Lana like a star. He treated her like owned property. He beat her, monitored her, threatened her face, the very thing that fed them both, if she looked too long at another man. On screen, she played powerful women. At home, she lived under surveillance. She paid his hotel bills, bought his clothes, funded his life, not out of love, but out of addiction to chaos and the illusion of protection. The illusion collapsed in 1958. That night, Lana's 14-year-old daughter, Cheryl Crane, walked into a bedroom and saw her mother being beaten. She picked up a kitchen knife and stabbed Johnny Stompanato. He died there, on the floor, in Lana's world. The case tore the curtain away. The public learned that their goddess had been living inside violence, that her home had become an extension of the street. Dean said that was the moment everyone finally saw the transaction she'd made. In his eyes, Lana Turner's deal was the worst of all. She didn't only sell herself, she sold the safety of her home. She invited the underworld into her bedroom. She turned intimacy into a crime scene. Dean once muttered over a late drink, "Lana thinks she's holding the beast. She doesn't realize she's just bait." To the mafia, Lana was never a lover. She was a mob mall, a decoration, a shield, sometimes a laundering tool, sometimes a warning. She traded her halo for bruises and left her daughter with a memory no glamour could erase. When Dean lit another cigarette, he didn't speak with judgment. He spoke with weariness. He had seen too many endings. Lana Turner never stood on corners. She never took small change. But she let the most ruthless men decide her worth. And in that world, heavy with gunpowder and dirty money, even a movie star wasn't valued much higher than a hand of cards. Chapter 1. Jane Mansfield. Dean swirled the ice in his glass slowly, each clink echoing like a quiet reminder of another story he couldn't forget. When it came to Jane, the memories weren't sweet. She wasn't just a copy of Marilyn, as the tabloids claimed. No, Jane was something else entirely. A woman too intelligent for the role she played and too ambitious to walk away from it. Jane had an IQ of 163, spoke 5 languages, played violin beautifully, and raised her children with sincere care. But none of that sold tickets. What did sell was her figure, and her willingness to turn it into a walking billboard. Unlike Marilyn's vulnerability or Lana's danger, Jane sold the raw thrill of physicality. And she didn't hide it. She packaged it, exaggerated it, and offered it to the highest rooms of power. Dean had seen it firsthand. Parties in Vegas, banquets in D.C., where Jane wasn't a guest. She was the after-dinner show, the unofficial prize at the end of the evening. Her job wasn't to speak. It was to sparkle, tease, and let the cameras catch just enough skin to keep the press hungry. What broke Dean's heart was the strategy behind it. Jane knew exactly what she was doing. Her wardrobe malfunctions were rehearsed. Her antics were premeditated. She said it herself. If you're going to do something wrong, do it big so the world sees. And the world saw until it got tired. The same people who once craved her presence discarded her when the thrill faded. Dean remembered her final years, cutting ribbons at supermarkets, performing in B-list clubs, still smiling, still giving, hoping someone might see the person behind the show. She died at 34, still chasing a spotlight that had moved on. Dean never judged her. He just saw the cost. A brilliant mind traded for cleavage, self-worth exchanged for applause, and a woman who thought she could control the game, only to be eaten alive by it. What do you think about her? If you've enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.